and 23. Okay.
Are you aware of that one?
I'm missing a few.
South Central?
Missing a 57.
No, that one was I've got the keys.
How you doing, guys?
Yeah, I don't have that one either.
Yeah, nothing. I need the consents, though.
I do. Do we know what the final word is for 67? Is there a position?
No.
So it's a consent?
Yeah.
Okay.
62.
Early today. That's postponed, obviously.
Yeah,
Didn't know
first
if it
three.
Didn't know if it was an A. He went through like 4 or 5 of these.
No.
Thank you.
3 out of 6.
57.
Where am I missing?
Another J. All right, dude.
54, 55, 56, 59.
Okay, so then, none of this
He's a
did.
good team player. Teammate who covered the weak spots. I don't watch television, so I'm sorry. All these shows that have been out, I haven't seen them. Right, right.
And see if he's got one.
Trivia in the bars.
Uh-huh.
Going into it.
Right. Yeah.
57 was withdrawn.
Oh, withdrawn.
Okay,
We made sure to get him on.
that explains that.
Right. So every now and then my daughter throws these things at me. She gets off.
All right.
I don't know where she gets some YouTube.
I didn't have one for 41 either.
Got that? A sheet for 41?
Yeah.
They give you the outline of the state.
I got
So,
41.
You do?
you know what the capital of this state? Country in Europe.
Here's another 41 if somebody wants one.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want it?
Well, let's just put Bob's to the side. It's consent.
That's a strong point.
What's that, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Tuesday, April the 3rd, 2018 convening of the Baltimore City Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals. A couple of housekeeping rules before we get underway. If you have a pager, a cell phone, anything that plays any sort of audible, electronically generated sound, a ringtone, a chime, etc., we ask that a minimum that you please turn those devices to a vibrate only, if not off position. And the reason for that rule is pretty simple and straightforward. You'll note that there are a number of microphones which are arrayed around us up here, and those microphones are all very sensitive, not only for the purpose of amplification, but they're also for the purpose of recording. And cell phones, pagers, etc., going off in the gallery disturb not just the general conduct of these proceedings, but also the recording of these proceedings as well. In addition, those of you who are forward of the wall above you, you can turn around and you'll see that there are 1, 2, 3 video cameras which are all mounted on the wall up there behind you. The green light means that they are active and recording. And that there are 1, 2 video cameras which are up here on the wall behind us. And these proceedings are being streamed live on the website for the city's cable access network, as well as recorded for subsequent broadcast on that network, and recorded for and preserved for all posterity on the city's YouTube channel. So cell phones, pagers, etc. I should also add conversations interrupt, again, not just the general conduct of these proceedings, but also the recording and videotaping of these proceedings. To the extent that you need to have a conversation, we ask that you please take those conversations out the double doors to your rear so that you don't disturb the proceeding or the recording of the proceeding. You're moving on to, I guess, the substance of the proceedings here today. You're certainly more than welcome to hang around and enjoy a civics lesson if you so choose, but we will be voting at the end of the day. And if you've got other things to do on this supposedly spring afternoon, that's quite understandable, and you can call into the zoning board office in the morning and find out how we ruled in your case. If you take out pen and paper, I can read off the number for the zoning board office a couple of times for you. And that number is 410-396-4301. Again, 410-396-4301. You will, however, need to wait until you receive the formal written notice of the outcome of your case, which should be forthcoming in about 3 to 4 weeks, before you'll be able to obtain your permits. And we certainly ask that you please not build in the city of Baltimore without first obtaining all of your necessary permits. In addition, those of you who are familiar with our proceedings, I may have already discerned this, but those of you who are unfamiliar with them, I'll note that there are 3 board members who are sitting here this afternoon. Ordinarily, there are 5. Now, that poses certain challenges for both the board and the parties who have cases before the board. Ordinarily, in the case, it's an applicant's burden to obtain a supermajority, or more than 2/3 vote in favor of your application. However, when there are only 3 board members, that poses a challenge, and you would need to have a unanimous termination by the board members in support of your application in order to be successful. In addition, for any case which has opposition, the composition of the board, or the question of whether the board was properly constituted to qualify as a quorum, could potentially be raised by any opponent. So although the board might unanimously vote in favor of your contested case today, your opposition might lodge an appeal with the circuit court, complain that the board was improperly constituted on the day of the hearing, and then send your hearing back for a entirely new rehearing. If you wanted to avoid that possibility, then you may want to give some thought to having your case postponed until the next convening of the board, where it's anticipated that we will have 4 board members, including our recently appointed new member of the board, and that issue would no longer be an appeal in your case. But I leave that as a question up to you. So if there are contested matters that are going to be heard today, we would need to have the consent of both participants in order to proceed. If any one of the participants objects to the composition of the board, we wouldn't be able to conduct the hearing today. So that's another, I guess, decision point that you'll have to reach in your case. This is for just the contested cases. This won't be an issue for our consent cases or our uncontested cases. All right. If you haven't already done so, if you're here in opposition to any case today, we ask that you please step forward and make sure that you've signed in on our sign-in sheet. The sign-in sheet allows us not just generally to know which cases have opposition, but also allows us to know who needs to receive those aforementioned written notices I spoke of earlier. In addition, if your case gets postponed or, well, yes, your case gets postponed such that it is not heard today, we need to know who you are and how to contact you so that we can let you know when those cases will be going forward if they're not to be heard today. So if you're here in opposition to any case, again, please make sure that you've signed in on our signing sheet. The procedure for when the cases are called is the same today as it is for our as it is on any other hearing date. The applicant will come forward. They'll stand to our left or your right. The opposition, if any, will come forward at the same time and stand to our right or your left. Once everyone is up here, we will then get you sworn in. And we'll first begin with the applicant, who'll be given the opportunity to explain what's being requested, I guess, generally explain the proposal, present any documents, witnesses, or testimony that they would like to offer in support of whatever it is that they're proposing, and respond to any questions which the board may have. Once they've concluded with their presentation, we'll then turn to the opposition, who'll be given the opportunity to present their side of things, their documents, witnesses, et cetera, in support of their position and arguments. Once the opposition, if any, is concluded, we'll return back to the applicant, who'll be given the opportunity to respond to any points which are brought up by their opposition, and then also to offer a closing statement. We won't be going back and forth, unnecessarily delaying things any longer than is necessary. Now, we're generally going to be calling the cases in the order in which they appear on the docket after we deal with first some preliminary issues. First, we do have some cases which have been postponed, and these are cases which are not going to be heard today. So if you're here on any of these cases, please take note of the fact that that your case has been postponed and won't be going forward today. So long as you signed in on the signing sheet, you'll be notified when these cases do go forward, but they will not be going forward today. First case, these are, I guess, companion cases which are being postponed. 2017-488, 2401 through 2417 East North Avenue, and 2017-489, 1833 through 1845 North Milton Avenue, and 2421 through 2431 East North Avenue. These cases are being postponed and won't be heard today. 2018-20, 6216 Wallace Avenue. That case has been postponed until May the 15th. In addition, we have one case which has been withdrawn. 2018-57, 721 Dolphin Street. That case has been withdrawn and won't be heard today. And okay. And 2018-40, 4015 Fleet Street. That case has been postponed as well until May the 18th. And 2018-60, 200 South Conklin Street. That case has been postponed. There is no currently set makeup date for that case as of right now. But if you're here on any of those cases, they won't be heard today, and just make sure that you signed in on the signing sheet so we can let you know when those cases will be going forward. Next, we have the cases which are on our consent agenda, and the consent agenda consists of cases where the zoning board staff has reviewed the files in these matters, and the board has concluded that we have the ability to approve these cases on a consent basis based upon the records submitted. We're going to call the consent cases together as a group. So I guess when the first person's called, you'll just come forward, you'll stand right there. Everyone else who's called after them will just follow in one line down the dais. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you all sworn in as a group, and then we'll call each case in turn. As your case is then called, you'll be given an opportunity at that point to offer any information that you would like to have added to the record at that time, and then we'll just handle it that way. So, all right, first case on the consent agenda is 2018-27, 1121 West Baltimore Street, Rodney George. Next, we'll have 2018-28, 106 East Preston Street, Cedric Al-Kazi. And we'll have 2018-39, 1830 Worcester Street, Wesley Winter. 2018-41, 5523 Matfelt Avenue. (2018-43) 2509 North Charles Street, Susan Williams. (2018-45 304 South Clinton Avenue, Jeff Fornador. 2018-52 1501 East Baltimore Street, George Corinos. 2018-55 200 North Utah Street, Carlton Gilbert. 2018-62 612 Cathedral Street, Amy Giblin. 2018-63 418 South Madeira Street, Ron Shapira. 2018-64 3417 Roland Avenue and 3419 Roland Avenue, Galen Wallace. 2018-66 610 South Milton Avenue, Dave Carey. 2018-68 711 South Port Street, Dave Carey. And then 2018-75 1727 Patapsco Street, James Huron.
67 is another.
Oh, and thanks for reminding me. I just hadn't revised that. 2018-67 2834 Dillon Street. All right, if all those intending to give testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. All right. First case on the consent agenda, 2018-27, 1121 West Baltimore Street, Rodney George.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir. Mr. George, we have this as an application to use the premises as a convenience store and 2 dwelling units. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department notes that this property is located in the Union Square Historic District, and for that reason recommends that approval of this application be subject to the condition that all exterior changes, including additions, demolitions, and alterations, are completed in accordance with an authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Mr. George, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and is there anything further you would like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
I'm already working with CHAP to make sure that we complete the work per their requirements, and obviously in the record, my building covers the entire lot, which is why I'm requesting relief in the first place.
Okay, is that it?
That is it.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we've determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, 2018-28, 106 East Preston Street, Cedric Alkazi. Afternoon, sir. We have this in application to use the premises as two dwelling units. Is that correct? All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is in the Mount Vernon Historic District. For that reason, the department recommends approval of this application be subject to the condition that all exterior alterations are completed in accordance with an authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And Mr. Alkazi, is that condition stated by the planning department acceptable to you? Yes? Yes. All right. And is there anything further you would like to offer to supplement the record in your case? All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Good luck. Next, 2018-39, 1830 Worcester Street, Wesley Winter.
Yes, sir. This is Sean Hughes on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. And Mr. Hughes, we have this as an application to install a new rooftop telecom facility consisting of 12 antennas and 1 microwave dish at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is located within the Chesapeake Bay critical area, therefore recommends approval of this application be subject to these conditions. Installation of antennas and related equipment will comply with all Chesapeake Bay critical area regulations and standards. Where visible from the street, antennas and related equipment must be painted to match the building to ensure they are visually unobtrusive. Panel antennas and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated in the plans and elevations submitted to planning, and the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Hughes, are the conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to your client?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And is there anything further you would like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
No, thank you.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal. Good luck. Next up, 2018-41, 5523 Matfelt Avenue. Okay. We have this, the applicant as Stephen Scally. Okay. And you are, ma'am?
The homeowner.
Your name?
Oh, sorry, Ruth Williams Zychek.
Okay. If you want, you can come up to the microphone there.
Ruth Williams, space Zychek, which is Z as in zebra, A-J-I-C-K.
And use the microphones, everyone, if
Yeah.
you don't mind.
Oh,
Come
sorry.
on down. There you go. All right. All right. Now, ma'am, we have this as an application to construct a 2-story rear addition at this location. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that this property or part of it is within the designated floodplain of the Jones Falls. The applicant has been consulted concerning this and has been working with planning staff on this. The department recommends approval of the application, subject to the condition that improvements authorized by the board are completed in accordance with building plans approved by the Department of Planning. Thank you.
All right. And ma'am, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
I don't think I know what the building conditions were.
Okay.
Contractor is going to have to step up for that one.
I didn't hear it either.
All right. In the Baltimore City Flood Code, there are requirements concerning additions to an existing property if the property's addition or the property itself is in the floodplain. And there are specific standards which are referred to in our memorandum, which I believe you should have received a copy of. However, I can read these into the record if you wish. Every new or substantially improved residential structure, the cost of which improvements are equal to or greater than 50% of the fair market value, must have its lowest floor elevated to at least the flood protection elevation, or FPE, and shown on an elevation certificate.
That
That cannot be done.
In a non-tidal floodplain, which this is, any horizontal expansion that increases the footprint and that is less than substantial must also have the lowest flood elevated level to at least the FPE. The addition must conform with all required permit programs, building, fire, and related codes, and management plans. All development must be undertaken in a manner which minimizes adverse impacts on aquatic or terrestrial habitat and their related flora and fauna. And all water, sewer, gas, electrical, and storm drain facilities at or below the FPE must be flood protected.
So, this is a little mill house built around the turn of the last
Yes,
century.
we know.
There are about 8 of them in a row.
Yes.
4 of those have additions very similar to what I'm requesting. But because of the change in the definition of the flood zone that happened in June 2017, I believe all of our houses are now 17.5 feet below. So what I'm wondering is, does the zoning department expect me to put this planning department expect me to put this 120-year-old old mill worker house up 17.5 feet on stilts?
I do not believe so. However,
Because that's
I
what
would-
I was like, they can't really mean that, right?
according to what I was told by my coworker, Mr. Polo, who is the floodplain manager, the documentation that's being provided to him indicates that the proposed addition would comply with these requirements. So, as I say, it is between whoever provided those documents to him and him. I'm simply relaying the information.
Okay. Then, I don't remember giving any plans to Mr. Upolo.
Well, if you
I did not do that. I did not provide him
Understood.
with any, in other words, what we thought, what I think, is that we would go ahead with it if we were able to do it. In other words, I think what he wanted us to do was put the furnace, the electric panel, and the hot water heater on the first floor, rather than be in the basement, which exists.
Oh, that was for the building permit, right? That, what the plans that he's showing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what we did
The,
for the building.
the board at this point is ruling on whether you can be allowed under the zoning code to have this addition that you're requesting.
So that,
They are not ruling on the floodplain issues themselves. That is being done separately. So if you accept this condition,
well, we certainly
then
do
you
that.
have the zoning approval that you need. You still may have to clear the other.
Then we do agree with that.
All right, thank you.
And, sir, for the record, your name is?
Steve Scally.
Okay.
That's the name on
The app,
on the
yes.
application.
All right. Ma'am, is the conditions stated by the planning department then acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay. Remember, come over and use the microphone.
Yes.
There for a reason, folks. Okay. All right. Anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
No.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Good luck. Thank you. All right. Next up, 2018-43, 2509 North Charles Street. Susan Williams.
Yes.
There you go. All right, Ms. Williams, we have this as an application to use a portion for application of permanent cosmetics. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Ms. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Mr. Chair, just briefly, there is a letter of support in the file from the Charles Village Civic Association.
Thank you.
And for the record, the planning department has no objection to this application. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Williams, is there anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
No.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next up, 2018-45, 304 South Clinton Street, Jeff Warnador.
Oh, yes. How's it going? I'm his brother, Philip Warnador.
Good afternoon, sir. We have this as an application to construct a second floor rear deck and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Planning department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Vornador, anything further you would like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal. Good luck.
you.
Yep. 2018-52, 1501 East Baltimore Street. George Corinos. Afternoon, sir. We have this as an application to continue as 2 dwelling units. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Yes, Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is within the Washington Hill Historic District. For that reason, the department recommends that approval of the application be subject to the condition that all exterior changes, including additions, demolitions, and alterations, are completed in accordance with an authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. And sir, is the condition stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes, acceptable, yes.
Okay. And is there anything further you'd like to offer in support of your case?
It's already done. The place is really wrapped in 2 kitchens. It's already laid out for 2 apartments. And,
okay.
And that's the reason I bought it, so I can continue, finish it as is.
Gotcha. All right. In that case, zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we've determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks.
Next, 2018-55, 200 North Utah Street, Carlson Gilbert.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir. We have this as an application to install a new garage rooftop telecom facility consisting of 12 antennas and 1 microwave dish at this location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Thank you, yes. Planning Department recommends approval of this application subject to these conditions. Where visible from the street, antennas and related equipment must be painted to match the building to ensure they are visually unobtrusive. Panel antennas and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated in the plans and elevations submitted to planning, and the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Gilbert, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is there anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
Nothing.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we've determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next, 2018-62, 612 Cathedral Street, Amy Giblin.
For the record, Melvin J. Kadinsky representing the applicant in this case.
Afternoon, Mr. Kadinsky.
Yeah.
Sir, we have this in application to add live entertainment to hotel with bar and restaurant. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Yes, this property is located within the Mount Vernon Historic District. The applicant has worked extensively with the staff of the Commission for Historic and Architectural Preservation on this particular design. The department therefore recommends approval of the application subject to these conditions. All work is completed and maintained in accordance with the authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historic and Architectural Preservation. A copy of the use and occupancy permit for the premises must be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. A copy of the written approval by the board of the live entertainment provided on the premises, including details of any restrictions or limitations on live entertainment provided, must be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. And a copy of all other permits and licenses required pursuant to the written approval of the board must be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Kadinsky, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to your client?
Yes, they are.
All right. Is there anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record in your
It'll be
case?
a nice project.
All right. Certainly looks like it. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yep. Next, 2018-63, 418 South Madeira Street, Ron Shapira.
Sir.
Afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
We have this as an application to construct a second-floor rear addition with rear deck at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Shapiro, is there anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
We are applying for a CHOP credit at the same time, so just waiting for the zoning and the CHOP to be approved.
Okay. Well, hopefully this will move you along. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Next, 2018-64, 3417 Roland Avenue and 3419 Roland Avenue. Galen Wallace.
Galen Wallace.
Afternoon, sir. We have this as an application to raise existing dwellings and consolidate lots and construct a new single-family detached dwelling at this location. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything on behalf of the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Wallace, anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
It will be a beautiful home.
Sure will be. All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next, 2018-66, 610 South Milton Avenue, Dave Carey.
Jason Rubin on behalf of the applicant.
All right. Mr. Rubin, are you also here on 711 South Port Street?
That's correct.
Okay, I'll call those together. Also call in the case of 2018-68 711 South Port Street. All right. With respect to case number 66, we have that as a application to construct a second floor rear deck and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything from the planning department with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And then as to case number 68, Mr. Rubin, we have that as an application to construct a two-story rear addition and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything from the planning department with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application either.
Okay. And Mr. Rubin, anything further you would like to offer to supplement the record?
No supplement in either case.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we've determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeals.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next, 2018-67, 2834 Dillon Street, Elaine Rispod.
Elaine Rispel.
Rispod. Okay, ma'am, we have this as an application to construct a two-story rear addition and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right, ma'am, is there anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
No, thank you.
Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we've determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Last but not least, 2018-75, 1727 Patapsco Street, James Haran.
James Aaron.
All right. Mr. Heron, we have this as an application to construct a two-story rear addition and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And sir, anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
No.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Thank you. Have a good
Good
day.
luck to you. Oh, 56. No, it's not like that. All right. All right. Next, we will address the cases which will include, I guess the cases which are on the remainder of our docket, which will include cases where opposition is signed in. And frequently we found that opposition is resulted by either a lack of communication or miscommunication among the parties. It can be useful to offer the parties an opportunity to have a dialogue amongst themselves to see if they can resolve whatever issues there are between them. Obviously, if there are two parties engaged in a dispute and they approach the board and ask the board to resolve the dispute, one of the two parties is going to go away disappointed with the result. So this is your opportunity to avoid that unhappy fate. We only have one case where I think opposition is signed in, and that is 2018-23, 1372 Washington Boulevard, Quinn Trong. Anyone here on 2018-23, 1372 Washington Boulevard? Mr. Barb, who did we have sign in on that?
Just opposition.
Back here.
Ah. Okay.
The representative from the Citizens of Pigtown Community Association is here.
Okay. All right. And the applicant is not?
Apparently not.
Okay. All right, ma'am, you can have a seat. We'll call the case in turn. If Mr. Trong does not appear, then it'll be a no-show. Although he was contacted.
Yes.
All right, so it'll just be reset on the docket. I'm sorry?
What does that mean?
It'll just go forward. Well, it'll be rescheduled.
Okay, so it's not going to happen today?
That's correct. If when I call the case, doesn't appear, then we'll just, and since it's towards the top of the docket, it's likely that, yes, it will be recent. Yes, yes. It shouldn't take long. All right. 2018-22, 719 South Durham Street, Jordan Duncan.
Jerry, do you mind just calling that number one more time? I had to pull up my track.
Oh, sure. Not a problem. Calling 2018-22, 719 South Durham Street, Jordan Duncan.
Jordan Duncan here.
Afternoon, sir. All right, you're Mr. Duncan?
Yes, indeed.
All right, and Mr. Duncan, we have this as an application to construct a second floor and third floor rear additions and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed.
All right. Sir, if you would raise your right hand to be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, and do we have staff reports?
There's an email in the file that's signed collectively as the residents of the 700 block of South Durham Street. This does not state that they're in opposition. It does state that they are concerned about this appeal for the following reasons. They ask, are the submitted drawings, or do the submitted drawings meet the requirements for the board to review the appeal? Has the property owner met all the requirements to have the second and third floor additions to the lot? Will the work be compliant with the health, safety, and welfare of the adjoining homes?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Duncan, why don't you let us know what you are proposing here?
We are proposing to do a complete rehab of the property. There's a small area in the back that's considered to be rear yard. This is one of those very small lots, about 9'6" by 52 feet deep. So we're just proposing to utilize that space as part of our rehab to allow for an appropriate floor plan.
Now, it's a little bit conflicting. Looking at the record here, does this say, does the dwelling cover the entire parcel?
Yes, aside from this small section that is about 3 feet by 8 feet, that's like an outside little walkway area.
Okay.
So that we're proposing to incorporate in the renovation.
Okay.
So they've built additions essentially that have encapsulated everything except for that small section.
Okay. I'm just trying to locate that on the diagram. Is that little walkway, is that along the side?
I saw a picture there that you had an overview. I might be able to point at it there.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's hard to see from here.
So I can point at it if you'd like me to.
Sure, it actually might be a little bit easier on the drawing. I was looking at the site plan. Here you go, you got the first floor here.
Right, so those are the proposed changes. We don't have a drawing of the current.
Okay.
It's a very small section, about 3 feet by 8 feet.
Okay, so 3 feet by 8 feet. So is that 3 feet wide by 8 feet long?
Yes, so essentially, might I just see your drawing there, the point?
Sure. You wanna flip through there?
So, I see it as kind of easy to see. Street. Okay, here's the street. So this would be Durham Street.
Mm-hmm.
This is the entrance to the building. You come all the way to the back. This is about halfway. There's a kitchen here and a little walkout right here in this sliver to get back to what's either used to be a shed. It's damaged at this point, but they're essentially from here to here, the small section here, about 3 feet, walk out to get into this part of the back building.
Okay. All right. And from the photograph that we have, it looks like the property is landlocked.
It is.
All right.
Yeah, buildings on all sides.
Sides. Okay. All right. Any further questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, is there anything for, as far as any opposition to that, or does this essentially
No, we
generate
didn't have any
approval?
opposition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next case, 2018-23, 1372 Washington Boulevard, Quinn Trong. Ma'am? All right, and calling again, 2018-23, 1372 Washington Boulevard, Quinn Trong. All right, ma'am, your name for the record?
Kelly Eastman.
Okay. And you're here on behalf of the Community Association, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, because we had learned that there were only going to be 3 board members today, we had contacted all of the applicants for the cases today to let them know that there would only be 3 board members, and that if they wanted to, their case could be postponed for another date. It appears that that's what Mr. Trong's elected to do. We'll certainly give him the benefit of the doubt on that, given that it's the scheduled date of the hearing. I think our last information was that he did intend to go forward, and so we're going to interpret his lack of presence as he understands that the matter is going to be postponed. So it's going to be reset on our docket.
Probably May 1st.
Okay. We'll probably set it for the 1st of May. If there are any issues with scheduling, just let us know.
You change the date of the time?
I'm sorry?
You can change the time?
Not really the time. The only way that we'd be able to change the time is if it were on our evening docket, which would not be the 1st. Do you know when the next time we have a 5 o'clock docket is?
Not off the top of my head, sorry.
Okay. About every month and a half, we have a 5 o'clock docket. And so if there are, and the reason we have those is just that if there are particular matters where people can only get there in the afternoon, in the evening hours, we try to schedule those for that date, but only really when there's kind of like some kind of necessity. So if there's any issue with the scheduling, just let us know, and we'll try to coordinate that. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
And we've got your information on the signing sheet, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Calling next, 2018-38, 7007 Wallace Avenue, Miriam Lando. Afternoon, ma'am.
Hi.
Okay, and ma'am, we have this as an application to use a portion, I guess, of the basement as a daycare center for 20 children. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you would, please raise your right hand to be sworn, ma'am.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, do we have staff reports?
There are multiple, meaning over 20, signed petitions from neighbors that are in support of this appeal, in addition to a letter from the local councilman that I'll read. I'm sorry I cannot be with you today at the zoning hearing. Residents of the Cross Country Improvement Association have voiced their support to allow 7007 Wallace Avenue to become a licensed daycare facility. As their representative, I support their position and ask that you approve this zoning request. Thank you for your assistance in this matter. Sincerely, Councilman Isaac Yitzi Scheifler.
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property does provide a driveway where staff parking can be provided for the proposed daycare. However, there is no specific location on the site that is safe for parent drop-off and pickup of children. Therefore, the department is recommending that the applicant contact the Parking Authority of Baltimore City to ask about possible creation of a passenger loading zone in front of the property. The department therefore recommends approval of the application be subject to the condition that the applicant request establishment of a passenger loading zone in front of the property in order to provide a safe place for drop-off and pick-up of children at the daycare center. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Lando, is that condition offered by the planning department acceptable to you?
I'm happy to ask them for it. I don't think anyone has it. I don't think my neighbors would mind. My only concern is that if I have no experience with this. Like, is it going to happen? Do they allow such things?
Sure. Mr. French?
The planning department obviously cannot issue a passenger loading zone authorization. That has to be done by the parking authority. So they are the agency which would actually make the decision whether there ought to be a passenger loading zone in front of the property or not.
Okay.
From the point of view of the planning department, it isn't going to matter whether they determine, pardon me, whether they determine that one should or should not be provided, simply that you should ask for one, and then they will make the decision based upon the traffic and the parking in the street.
In case they say no, I just want to explore other options. So one thing is that there's an alley behind my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that alley is never used other than by the garbage trucks. So maybe that is an option for drop-off. Like another option.
Mm-hmm.
Something to keep in mind is that the 20 children don't all arrive at once.
Yes.
They really don't. Like parents have, have different carpools. Some kids come early, some late. So there is some adequate parking on my block for the parents to be educated that they need to park properly and allow a few extra minutes to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would not be allowed to ever block traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be very strict about that. And I plan to have it's myself and an assistant. So I plan to have either my assistant or myself outside at drop-off time and at the typical main drop-off time, like from 9 until 9:10, let's say, in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
from 2 o'clock until 2:10 in the afternoon, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
to help get the children in, get the children out, so that parents could leave quicker.
Gotcha. Okay. Certainly do you know what I was going to say, certainly the availability of rear access would provide, would sort of alleviate that. Do you know what the width is of that alley? Just looking at the map, it looks like it is technically terminus.
Well, it's wide enough for the garbage trucks. I know that I used to drive a 15-seater van, and it would get scratched by all the
No,
bushes.
okay, it looks like it's...
But for a little car or a minivan, I think
Looks pretty wide, actually.
Yeah.
It appears to vary from 30 feet down to 15 feet, but the
Yeah.
15 feet is just south of her property.
Yeah.
So she has the width behind her house. She is correct.
Okay.
But again, the
Everyone
parking
has-
authority would make the decision on whether it's necessary to have a loading zone in front of your house or not. They'd look at considerations like the one you're mentioning right now.
All right. So it sounds like that would be something that would be a potential additional option so that people can...
Well,
if they
parents
wanna
could call us
drive.
from their car,
Mhm.
and one teacher could go outside and get the child, so that the parent could drive on.
Mm-hmm. All right. Looking at the aerial, looks like you've got some backyard space as well.
Yeah, I have a lot of backyard space and neighbors that share their yards. It's a very friendly neighborhood. Thank
Okay.
God.
I was going to say, it's I guess, a semi-detached house?
Right.
Okay. And your neighbor on the other side of the wall is in support?
Yeah, all the neighbors are in support. There's a need there's a lot of children in our neighborhood, and we need daycare that's licensed. I brought along the petitions if anyone wants to see them.
Sure, if you would like to pass those up, although, do we have those in the record already?
I don't want to take everyone's time, but
No, that's okay. I was just checking. It sounds like we already have those in the record.
okay. Here's another copy if you want them. Oops. I don't know if you want to see like credential papers.
No, we have the approval from the state approving you for an approximate capacity of 20 children. What will be your hours of operation?
Well, a few children come early. They would like to come early, like, let's say, starting at 8:30, but just a few will come then, like around 3 children, let's say. Then most of the children come starting from 9, and they will probably, like we said, come in 9:15. The late mothers will come at 9:30 or 10. Then we basically end at 2 o'clock, but the mothers who work longer, or the parents who work longer, will keep them. So let's say around half of the children until 2, and the other half, depending on the working hours, 2:30, 2:45, 3, 3:30 is the latest. So, or let's say around 8, 9, or 10 children have aftercare. That's until 3:30.
Okay.
I'm not doing like an all-day thing. It's
Sure. So you're imagining sort of all of your kids be picked up 3:30.
by 3:30. Yeah, the children are registered already, but they know that I'm working on getting licensed.
Gotcha. Okay. And then this would be 5 days, I guess, during the
Basically the school year, like September, the beginning of September through June, with off for holidays.
And what ages?
Following a typical school schedule. The ages are 4-year-olds. They're turning 4. The youngest turns 4 like by the end of September or early October. And some of them are 5 or turning 5, 4 or 5.
Okay, so they're right there, sort of the preschool age.
Preschool age, right.
All right.
I guess I might at some point make a camp. So it might also be June or July.
Okay. But not like infants and
No, no
toddlers.
infants and toddlers. I'm a teacher, so it's a school program. They learn ABC readiness, etc.
All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think. 2018-42, 2223 Maryland Avenue, William Bauer.
No, I don't have 42.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's out of order. I got it.
Okay. Okay. All right, Mr. Bauer, we have this as an application to use the entire premises of a carriage house as a restaurant with outdoor seating. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. If all those intending to give testimony can raise their right hands to be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Do we have staff reports?
Yes, Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that this proposed use would be within what was originally the carriage house of this property, not within the larger residential structure that's on the property on Maryland Avenue, despite the address of the property, of course, being on Maryland Avenue. The proposal is appropriate for the area, and it qualifies as a neighborhood commercial establishment structure, and the proposed use is consistent with a neighborhood commercial establishment. The department therefore recommends approval of the application, subject to the condition that the restaurant complies with all requirements for neighborhood commercial establishments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Bauer, why don't you tell us about what's being proposed here?
It's my pleasure to introduce Miss Lane Harlan. She's the owner of Clavel and W.C. Harlan in the neighborhood. And this will be her third location, her husband Matthew. I'm going to let Lane explain the concept of her restaurant.
Sure.
Basically, we want to take the carriage house and we want to create a restaurant with a range of fare, kind of similar to the amount we have at Clavel, but a different theme. So it's going to be a little more Japanese-based, a little bit of a mix. But we do have an outdoor courtyard, so we would like for people sort of cafe-style to be able to come in and get service outside as well as inside the carriage house. It's about 2 blocks from Clavel.
Okay. Now this is going to go in a carriage house, you said?
Yes, if you look at the picture submitted, it's the back carriage house. It's toward the corner of Morton and, that's, and Maryland.
I mean,
23rd, yeah.
23rd.
Yes. And it's, I have the picture I submitted. It's the, it's all the way towards the backside. And then the courtyard, of course, right next to it. And this is located in the Old Goucher neighborhood, and I think we have Mr. Cross here from the Old Goucher neighborhood.
What's there now?
Used to be like a bike repair and cleaning shop.
May I chime in?
Sure, step forward and
Kelly
just-
Cross, right?
That's right. Yeah. My name is Kelly Cross, president of the Old Goucher Community Association. We've worked very hard to bring Lane and this establishment to our neighborhood. We're very excited about having it in the neighborhood. Lane has presented to a number of our community association meetings. We think this is going to be a great addition, particularly given the vision plan that we implemented beginning 3 years ago that calls for particularly these types of establishments coming into our neighborhood, restaurants, small businesses. And we think this is exactly in line with what we've asked for. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I guess you're trying to fit this in under the neighborhood commercial establishment.
Correct.
Okay. Explain to me your position on how it qualifies.
Well, it's been an existing business operation in the past. It's also been rezoned to also a commercial district space. And all the stuff they would like to do inside this location fits perfectly into the neighborhood business district. There's not going to be any live entertainment, not going to be packaged goods. So all the restaurant plans that they have there fall under the code that allows for that.
Oh, no. Okay. We have as the last authorized use, 6 dwelling units and office and plumber's office in rear. That was going back to 1945.
When we took over, it's a, like I said, bicycle repair and cleaning kind of station.
Gotcha.
The residential portion is the other building towards the front facing Maryland Avenue.
And there have been a number of commercial uses in the interim in the space. There was a small marketing digital design studio that was there, the bicycle repair place. For a little bit, there was a comic book store in that location. So it's been consistently, as long as I've been president of the neighborhood association, a commercial space.
And I guess with the complexity of the neighborhood commercial designation is that it requires that the structure have been originally used and constructed for non-residential uses, which requires it to have a history of non-residential use going back to its construction and initial use. Mr. Henry, do we have any property history?
Basically, the uses that they're describing were probably casual uses. The last use on record was the office, plumber's office, in the 40s. No one appears to have obtained a permit since that time for any of the uses they're discussing.
Okay.
We did a cross-reference because of the configuration of the building. We looked under Morton Street, we looked at other streets that might have what we would call known as address, could not find anything under a known as address as well.
Okay. And then how about the dwelling use?
Let's see.
We've got, back in 45, it was 6 dwelling units and an unoccupied office. Now, I don't know if that, there appears to be a large structure, and then this carriage house is in the rear, so were those 6 dwelling units in the building that's in the front?
Yes, that's right. They were in the Maryland Avenue frontage.
So is there currently 6 DUs?
It is.
Okay.
The front building is, the back building where the carriage house is has always been commercial. There's a courtyard that separates them. That courtyard is something that we're hoping to activate with use that actually benefits the neighborhood, but it's residential in the front, commercial in the back. For all intents and purposes, if you're walking on the street, they read as 2 separate properties. They're obviously combined under the same deed, but they're very different uses.
And the part on the back of the dwelling unit is it's a cafe, because Helena was, so it is, there will be a commercial business separating us from the dwelling units. We also have leases on the first 2-floor dwelling units to use just as an office so that there's nobody there.
She's talking about the bottom floor of the apartment
Yes, I
building.
understood.
Oh, the main building.
Mr. French?
I was just going to say that references to the basement, what was originally built as the basement of the dwelling unit, the original single-family dwelling unit that is on the front of the property. And that building has since been divided into apartments.
So the use of the courtyard today, from what I've read, is parking for the 6 units? Is that correct?
No.
No.
No. They're not using the courtyard's not for the parking.
It's simply unused. It's an unused courtyard.
It's a locked gate, and it's the ground is uneven. It's not been used.
So it's not paved?
It's
broken
up.
up.
We plan to.
Yeah, so that's the, where the highlighted area is. That's the courtyard. It looks like somebody just pulled their car in, but there's no parking.
Right. I think the maintenance person parks in there sometimes. The landlord certainly parks in
There's
there.
a van sometimes. Yeah.
Does, Mr. Henry, does the residential part of this have a parking requirement? I know, I mean, obviously it's a DU, but is there anything in the file that requires parking spaces?
No, the basic premise is that if a building's built more than 50 years ago, if it was essentially, it's grandfathered in for its existing parking, the only question that would come up would be that they would need 1 parking space for every 2 apartments. So they need 3 parking spaces under ideal circumstances. Where they have the 3 parking, the grandfather clause only protects what was there, the initial 6 units. But if they happen to have 3 parking spaces, they're not supposed to get rid of the 3 parking spaces that serve those 6 units. They're supposed to stay there. Now, there's a question whether or not they're officially parking spaces.
Well, I guess that's really my question.
No, we have no record that these parking spaces exist other than the photographs of the paving and the cars using them. Very seldom does the permit record keep track of the number of parking spaces on a parking lot. For an old building. Newer buildings, the records are more complete, but for old buildings, it's a piece together sort of situation.
It's definitely concrete, and it's never been lined. There's no appearance of any kind of lining on there whatsoever. It's not blacktop.
It's a locked gate that is only accessible by maintenance or basically the landlord going in.
So you would lease the carriage house and that whole area?
Courtyard.
Yes.
Courtyard. Okay. I think I saw somewhere your plan is to have tables in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll landscape it a bit and probably put some coverage on the top, some tarps and stuff.
assume there's no available parking, is that right?
There's no off-street parking with the spot, so it's all street parking along the location.
I will throw in that it's been a very significant part of our vision plan to that we are not emphatic about parking availability in the neighborhood. We believe there's ample parking on the street. There's a lot of empty, unutilized parking all around this particular property. So having some sort of dedicated parking to that to properties, particularly on Maryland Avenue and Charles Street in Old Goucher, is really antithetical to the type of neighborhood we're trying to create.
Okay. Any further?
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure, in the written staff report, there's a reference to a footnote in table 12301. Just wanted to make sure that you saw that and whether that was applicable or not.
Yes, I understood that applied for whether or not it was whether or not the neighborhood commercial establishment would be a permitted use. Here, I understand the nature of the request is it's being sought as a conditional use. Any further?
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, I've got 2018-53, 2042 Bank Street, Nicholas Nagy.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing, sir?
Good.
Okay, Mr. Nagy, we have this as an application to construct a 10-by-3 addition to accommodate a stairwell. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Sir, if you would please raise your right hand to be sworn.
How do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Nagy, why don't you tell us about what's being proposed here?
So the building is now a two-unit. It's a two-unit building. The stairwell right now exists on the drawing where the bathroom is. We're moving it to the side so that you do not have to continue to go through the side of the unit to access the second and third floor. But it is currently a two-unit building with two separate meters, two separate kitchens and everything, and two separate entrances, except for the fact that the entrance to the second and third goes through the middle of the first floor unit. That's the way it had been used forever. But before we purchased it, we actually made sure that it was lead-free and registered as a two-unit to make sure that it would continue as a two-unit.
So this stairwell is to provide access to the second floor apartment?
Yes, sir. Okay. It also increases the size and takes out two of the landings because it's right now the stairwell is one of those old style where you continue to go up. This would be a straight 10-by-3 shot, so theoretically it would be better ingress and egress.
Any questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
2018-54, 574 through 580 Pressman Street, Roberta Miller.
Yep, that's me. Hi.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Afternoon.
Ma'am, we have this as an application to install a freestanding identification sign that includes electronic message board. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Ma'am, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do we have staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ma'am, why don't you tell us a bit about what you are proposing, although
Okay.
I
We
think I
have
have
a
some idea.
yard that it would be enclosed, being closed in a yard that belongs to the church. And we wanted to put a lighted sign that we could illuminate to show exactly when services are. There's a picture of the kind of sign that we want right there. It would be the one that would be electronically done, that we could change the wording weekly to let people know what those activities are being conducted at our church.
Okay. Unfortunately the bearer of bad news. And that is that electronic display signs or electronic messaging signs with the variety that you've described are prohibited under the zoning code. That is that the board doesn't have the discretion to approve requests for these kinds of signs. We have received a number of similar requests from other institutions, and we've had to unfortunately be the bearer of bad news to them as well. I'm not sure if this is a coordinated effort by the various purveyors of
Signs.
these signs going around to various different churches and institutions.
We sought them out, actually.
Oh, okay.
The company that we're dealing with is actually based in California,
Mhm.
because we couldn't find anything within the immediate area that will do them. But we can get a sign, we just can't have the lights, we can't have the...
Yes, you can't have the electronic messaging sign. You know, your standard, I guess, magnetic letter sign, which I understand is...
You're hurting me today.
I'm sorry?
You're hurting me today.
Sorry. That's all that really is permitted. I do understand that there may be some effort to change this legislatively amongst the council and the mayor's office, but as of yet, they have not seen fit to do that.
Our
So-
hands are tied. That's the problem. Our hands are tied.
Any idea when that ruling would be? Because, I mean, we don't want to purchase a sign.
Sure.
Then we get it 6 months later, and they, I mean, and I know you
Sure,
may not know,
sure.
but if you have any
The-
ideas, if it's within a year, we'll wait another year.
I have no real knowledge of that process. I'm not sure even if there's even been legislation that has been submitted.
Okay.
I know that I believe that there has been a discussion regarding a potential fix, but I don't think that there's really been anything.
We've waited
done in that
now,
regard.
it's been about 2 or 3 years, thinking that it would change, and, okay. All right, thank you.
Sorry.
Now, do we need a permit just to get the regular ones? I mean, or we're approved for that, just to?
You'll get us, if you amend your application and apply just for a sign without the electronic message component,
Have to
you just
reapply.
get a sign permit for that, yes.
Okay,
You should
thank
get
you.
that from permits office.
All right.
Yes, so.
A heavy heart.
What?
It's back to church now, you know. I gotta go back to church and tell them y'all said that.
Well, before you leave, ma'am, I just didn't want to point out that what Mr. French was suggesting is that in order to get the static sign, you would need to amend your application so that you would request a sort of a static identification sign for the
Thank you.
church. So did you want to amend your request now?
Yes, can I do that now, so that I don't have, yes, I would definitely like to.
Okay.
So that we can order it, because I said we have to order this from out of town.
All right, so we can just eliminate the includes electronic message board, and we'll just say without.
Okay. Very good. So I don't need to come back, I don't have to go back down there and reapply, this is all.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay. All righty, thank you, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care. Ma'am? All right. Yes. All right, next case. This one? No, this one. 2018-56, 2818 Monument Street, East Monument Street, Demetrios Karvounis.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
On behalf of Mr. Demetrius,
State your name again, ma'am.
Mary Massey.
Okay. Ms.
Mary Massey, I just didn't hear.
Massey, yes. And if you can step forward a little bit closer to the microphone. There's, if you need to pull it down, you can. All right, Ms. Massey, I understand this, well, we've got this as a application to use the first floor as a retail clothing store / consignment shop. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you would, please raise your right hand to be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And do we have staff reports?
Yes, Planning Department has reviewed this application and notes this property is in the East Monument National Register Historic District and is recommending approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Massey, why don't you tell us about what's being proposed here?
My proposal is we help a government program of KRA. We help several churches in the community. In our establishment, we don't accept donation because our things are already donated to us from Adam Winders and Jonathan Melnick Auctioneer. So what we do is people that are through social service, substance, they come to us. People that are burnt out, they come to us, and we furnish clothing, shoes. So basically it's a non-profit. But the profiting part is to pay for the rent, the gas and electric, things of that nature. So when churches, outreach ministries come to us, as long as they come to us with a form, then we give them whatever they need.
Okay. And it's clothing, housewares, etc.
Yes. No perishables.
All right. Any more? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too. Next, 2018-59, 3615 Keswick Road, Paula Richardson.
My name's Ramsey Sotier. I'm the owner of the president. Sotier, S-O-T-I-R.
Okay, Mr. Sotier, we have this as an application to construct a second floor rear deck accessing a new deck onto a rear garage roof. Is that correct?
There's an existing rooftop, and we just want to put a deck on it. I have pictures, but that might be the technical description. Yes.
Well, what I've got is construct a second floor rear deck, which will access a new deck, which will be located on a garage roof.
The one deck's already existing, but the new deck would be on the garage roof. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. Why don't you raise your right hand so we can swear you in?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Do we have staff reports?
One email in the file from a neighbor who is opposed to this appeal, citing concern for blocking light into their yard and garden.
And we did speak to, I believe that's Joanne.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me, sorry.
That's okay. All right. So, Mr. Sotier, why don't you explain to us what is being proposed here, and then also if you want to address the letter from the neighbor in opposition.
Yes, sir. So pictures might do a better job than me describing it. But basically, here's the back of our current home, and there's a garage. We're just hoping to put a deck on top of it. It's currently a black asphalt top.
And
here
I
would
see
be,
that there's like a walkway that you're gonna have coming from the rear deck
Well-
from the house onto the deck on the garage.
no, so this is the existing walkway. The garage deck will only be accessible through the kitchen exit. So there'll be no stairs, if that's what you're asking.
No, I'm basically envisioning that there's a bridge going between where the house is and the deck.
Oh,
on
yes,
top of
sir.
the garage.
Pardon me, yes.
Okay. All right, and I guess that's the, deck that's being constructed to provide access to the new deck.
Yeah, so that would be in between. This is the existing deck.
Mhm.
We'd have to build, I believe it's a 2.5-foot elevation change. So just stairs up there.
Okay.
And then I did find,
This is what we have for the drawing.
yes, sir. I did also find just pictures and locations with similar garage roof decks. So our current home, and then the highlighted zones are all garage roof decks. And I have the, pardon me.
Sure.
Pictures to go along with that. I've actually found that it's a rarity to have a garage without a deck on it. So this would be south down Keswick. There's 3 in a row. This would be north. And then I took a couple others, and I color coded them to the map as well. So
Okay.
really nothing out of the ordinary from what's down there currently. Our issue is we're looking for green space. My fiance is an avid gardener, and with the way the light comes in, we need some later sunlight, and she's hoping to use the very far out portion of the deck to do some of her gardening. As far as the neighborhood concerned, so we did meet with both Matt, the president of the Hamden community. We went to one of the neighborhood meetings and went over our proposal. There were no direct complaints or concerns in the Hamden area. He notified us that we're actually technically in Wyman Park. So we called that president as well, Jack. He mentioned that our next door neighbor, who we had actually already spoken to, but did have a concern about, when I spoke to her, it was, she's not a big fan of change, which is understandable, but also she had concerns about light and then also privacy. So we are trying to come up with different solutions. I think really keeping the profile as similar to as it currently is makes sense for them. In addition, looking at this plan, we have flexibility on where we put those stairs. So we said that if she would prefer them, on her side of the house, it's our neighbor over here. That would be fine with us, or this side. So we are hoping that, to be flexible. And after our conversations, she said that she would be okay with it. I don't know if she officially communicated that other than to Jack, who gave us the go-ahead as well.
Okay.
Here would be an example of something that we wouldn't be doing. So that's a current deck also in Keswick. And I can understand from a neighbor's perspective how that's obtrusive, So we're really trying to keep something low profile, all wood. It's currently black asphalt. So we really think it will be an improvement. And we just don't have the budget to remove the garage.
Gotcha. Plus, I guess it gives you some storage.
Yeah. No, it's good to get a car off Keswick. But are there any other questions or concerns, or?
Nope, not for me.
Nope.
Okay. So then, I apologize. The process from here, you guys will vote right now? Or?
Once we're done
Okay.
today, yeah.
Do you guys vote in the same order that the cases were heard in? Okay.
Generally, yeah.
Yes.
I won't wait for that. And then I can call that number tonight and get
Yes.
a hearing. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Pardon me?
Tomorrow morning.
In the morning, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have the plans as well, but it looks like y'all already have a copy.
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay. Do you want me to leave the rest of these pictures with you guys?
Sure, we can take those.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
One more.
Yes.
Maybe next time.
Oh, 60 was withdrawn.
It's coming.
Don't speak that into existence.
I got no more.
No one here.
Right?
Yeah.
On one's going twice.
Yeah.
Anybody?
All right. That's all. Okay. Any ones that we want to talk about?
I want to talk about 42 and 56.
Avenue.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be a similar issue with those two.
Okay.
I mean, how do you define a neighborhood commercial establishment as a garage? Because the definition is non-residential. So does non-resident, and I'm asking this, I'm not
Yeah.
advocating, does non-residential mean a resident, an individual doesn't live in that part? Or is it residential because it's attached in part of a residence? It doesn't say, the statute doesn't say commercial, it says non-residential.
Non-residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, is that carriage house? I don't know what the use was in the past. That's probably easier to get to the commercial than the garage on Monument, I think.
Yeah, let me find those.
Well, it used to be a business district, so the probably had a long string of commercial businesses in there. They may have had permits. Now, where the board did have some previous cases to approve some commercial usage on that property. But the line in the zoning code says the zoning approval is not a permit.
Yes.
They
Right.
never got use and occupancy permits for these things that the board had approved in the past.
Well, the statute says a structure that is non-residential in its construction and original use. Um,
Right.
Did people live in, is it carriage house 2 stories? I think it is.
The one that
This one is.
Yeah, I mean, did people years ago, did they live upstairs years ago? I mean,
The old story was the grooms would live above. That was their trade, basically, for the work
Look
they did.
dead.
They got a place to sleep, but they didn't get a kitchen, they didn't
Right.
get a bathroom. They just got a bedroom, basically.
and then horses were downstairs.
Yeah.
This is very good upstairs.
God, can you imagine what that must have smelled like?
Especially in
I was
August.
thinking.
Yeah.
Just think about it, every street smelled like that.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
wasn't anything special.
True. True. I'm just thinking of living above that.
I'm not saying it
Better
was.
than living below it.
Well, actually, if you were like in a basement below it, because, you know, the odors are going to travel up.
There's still cracks in the floorboards.
Well, yes.
one of the statements said to me by a said that technically, the animals generate enough heat that it's a warm place to be.
But-
There's no heat.
Yes, yes,
It
I
might
can.
stink, but it's warm.
Yes, it's a trade-off. Suffice it to say, I don't think that any of us would want to live there. So yeah, my thought with the carriage house was that I sort of grabbed onto the same thing, that it wasn't, you know, that there was not a requirement that it be commercial, just
Right.
simply that it not be used for a residential purpose.
Right.
Even though the carriage house, I guess theoretically, would have been accessory to the residential use in the house, but the structure wasn't constructed as a residence predominantly anyways, irrespective of whether or not the groom would live upstairs or whatever. And so in my mind, I said, okay, that's fine. I think that it's a little bit different than the usual one of these cases. You know, the typical one is, you know, I always go back to the properties where this whole thing started, where it was, you know, those sort of corner markets,
Right.
you know, that have the angle front
Right.
and the big store window and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. I mean, this clearly isn't that, but it's still a non-residential structure. And what was the issue with the, I guess, with the Maryland Avenue? Not Maryland Avenue.
Monument.
Monument.
Monument, it appears is a garage in the back of a house.
Yes.
I mean,
I couldn't tell exactly where they were locating it, but
that was which number was it? 56.
okay, I see. It's just only in the shaded area back there.
Yeah, I think we're, especially with this one, I think we have to be careful because we're setting some precedent. I mean, if we approve this, and I'm not saying we should or shouldn't at this point, but if we say a garage is non-residential and it meets the definition, every garage in Baltimore City can have a commercial use in it.
True. And I guess
And I'm not sure.
the issue more with this one is that I don't even know that that garage is not a part of the house, or that it wasn't constructed that way. I mean, it's, you know, it's unlike with Maryland Avenue, it looks like it's actually connected to the house.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for pointing this one out. I didn't notice that the first time. I just saw that.
Yeah, but it's that.
But yeah, it's just this piece here in the back.
Yeah. Are we reading this, or looking at this wrong? Because the highlighted portion, the yellow portion is in the back.
Right.
Well,
This
here,
is our data sheet.
now the drawing they have shows front, yeah. Do we have the,
Which
where's
is
the
a-
file?
Which
Oh,
will
you're
be a big
right.
difference.
Yes. I wonder if someone's trying to be sneaky. 56.
Yeah. as you-
Yes, that's what I was
Okay.
just saying.
I don't understand that.
I think the reason that I highlighted that rear portion was to highlight the fact that it was 100% lot coverage for the building.
Oh,
I don't think I was trying to make that stand out as a garage, but
Okay.
showed that that was the area.
Okay.
If I second
So
guess
it's
myself.
in the main building and not in the garage.
gosh. All right.
Because unlike the carriage house, I designated on this, on the report, carriage house.
Yeah.
On the other report, I would have done the same and put, said garage,
Take care, Bruce.
Okay.
Permit application.
or said in the rear.
Does she use the word first floor front when used with a permit application?
It doesn't say front, it just says first floor.
Use first floor as retail clothing store / consignment shop.
Yeah.
Go to the next sheet. doesn't.
No.
And then go look at the use and occupancy application.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I was doing that for lot coverage.
She says
That's
to
what I was
use
doing
the site for consignment, retail and consignment.
Well, from these somewhat fuzzy photographs, the front appears to have one of those storefront
Yes.
windows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think we questioned whether it was a sort of a typical corner
Mm-hmm.
place. I think that back portion's been added though at some point.
Well, that alleviates my concern, because I was having some real issues with approving that garage.
Yeah, I'm certain that I wasn't highlighting that to be a garage.
Yeah, okay.
If it's approved, we just, when we write up the decision, do we
Front.
add the word for a storefront?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be more judicious with my highlight.
Yeah, watch that highlighter.
Oh, you had it as the hair braiding. Yeah, I think that when you were when you were reading it out, I would think I had heard something about hair braiding. I was like, whoa, what?
That's what it was. Right.
First floor is a variety store, first floor premises.
No, not a problem.
I'm just looking at the permit history. Okay. Yes. On the sign applications, he says use the first floor as retail clothing and consignment.
All right, I'm okay with it.
All right.
Yeah, I was okay with 56. I'm still not sure about 42.
It's got you scratching your head.
Whether or not it was constructed originally for non-residential use.
Well, it was for the horses and carriage.
And people.
Well, I guess maybe our understanding is that with some of these, that the grooms would live above. But I think that the primary purpose isn't for the residential. It's basically, it's just it's where do you go, it's where you put the horse and the carriages and.
All right, I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit. So if you have, take that argument, so I've got a car and I've got a garage and it wasn't built for people to live in, it was built to put my car in, which is my horse from,
Your modern day horse.
my modern day horse. So is every garage a neighborhood commercial establishment?
Well, carriage house is defined in the code specifically.
Okay.
As being means an accessory structure of a two-story construction that was formerly used or intended to be used for storage of horses and carriages. So there are
garage.
structures around Baltimore that everybody knows was an original carriage house.
Is garage
which is
defined?
not a newly built garage. Garage, a garage is parking garage. Parking garage is principal use residential detached. Parking garage means a structure adjacent to but detached from dwelling for off-street parking of motor vehicles with no commercial operations. So I guess you just have to know the history of the building to know that it was a carriage house versus a garage.
Well, is that really a distinction with a difference?
Well, the carriage house it was typically built the same time as the principal structure, right?
Maybe yes, maybe no.
I don't know. Historically, I thought they kind of, right.
Not enough.
Yes.
Right, right.
And I guess really what we're kind of getting to is these, and maybe we've had them in some other cases. It really gets down to using these accessory buildings as basically you're taking a structure that was intended to support an accessory use, and you're creating basically a primary use on it. So you're taking the carriage house that used to just simply be accessory to the residential use that was made of the dominant structure on the property, and now you're saying, all right, well, we've got these we've got two buildings on one parcel.
No different
and we're
than the
gonna
auxiliary
have,
dwelling unit conversation.
That's right. And now we're going to have basically two primary uses on it. We're going to have a restaurant, and we're going to have a residential apartment building.
It's tough because I think we're setting some fairly significant precedent here.
When you get into the conversation eventually about auxiliary dwelling units, which there's one coming up in the next hearing, you'll find that the prior code specifically said you can't have more than one primary structure on a lot.
That's right.
The new code does not specify that. We tore the code apart trying to figure that out.
Separated out primary structure versus accessory structure, farming on a lot. Everybody can have their own little apartment.
Derek thinks it was just a
Mistake.
Mistake.
Yeah.
The old mistake.
More than just a mistake.
It doesn't affect today's decision.
Well, but it doesn't.
But
I'd say this, that there's nothing in the code that says the opposite, that says that you can have it. So the indication isn't really, I guess there's sort of an absence of indication one way or the other by the council as of at least right now about whether or not there's this difference and whether you can have basically two primary uses being made of existing on one property. So I think gives us the ability to say whether or not there is or isn't.
Well, getting back to our case here, do we distinguish between what we believe was originally constructed as a carriage house and what was originally constructed as a garage?
I don't think that it really makes a difference when it comes down to the neighborhood commercial establishment. Because exactly like you said, that if you extend it out, carriage house, garage, whatever, neither one of those is sort of comes into play when you're talking about the neighborhood commercial establishment. So it can exist in either one.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, can you have it in this kind of a structure where it's really an accessory structure on a lot? I wonder if this provides some indication. Looking at the code, 14.328, it says neighborhood commercial establishment uses are limited to the reuse of existing buildings that were originally constructed and used for non-residential uses in what are now residential or office residential zoning districts. Then this next sentence, because these uses are for existing buildings, they are not subject to the minimum lot area required for non-residential uses in residential or office residential zoning districts. Now, by referring to those standards, it sounds like they're still intending to go with the understanding that there's one dominant, you can only have one primary use made of a property.
Anybody got the number for the folks in Chicago?
I would argue that actually you have the discretion to allow multiple neighborhood commercial establishment uses in a building not originally constructed. Now, obviously, that's going to depend on the size and configuration of the building. About a residential zone that's now a non-conforming structure built as commercial or industrial. Big enough you could divide it into several spaces for commercial purposes. Yeah, you can authorize, in theory, anything from 1 through 7 on this list, on page 275 there. And say, yeah, you can have a daycare center, you can have a restaurant, you can have a hair braiding salon or a barber shop, whatever the personal service establishment might be, and you can have an office. You got a little floor area.
What was a warehouse, it's now.
Yeah.
That's the reason that this is here. It's meant to be giving flexibility.
Ability, yeah.
Because one size doesn't always fit all when it comes to this kind of stuff. The planning commission.
I spoke with Lloyd Feinberg. I said, suppose they've got a warehouse and they've turned it into 50 dwelling units. Does that mean they can turn it back into offices and restaurants? And she said, that's up to the board to decide. Because I have questions of taking 50 dwelling units out of the residential district and turning
Yeah.
them into offices.
Yeah. Well, and it's an intensification of the use too. I mean, you're using it just for residences, okay, there's gonna be basically 50 people that are gonna be there. You change them all into, offices and all these other various different things, you can have, who knows how many people you're gonna have coming through now. But it certainly does, I think you're right, Martin, that I can see the intention to have that flexibility, and it really is going to be sort of incumbent on us to use discretion, considering, the size and.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, as I said, we have to be careful because, as I said, if we define a carriage house as where the horses were parked, I'm gonna say, well, my modern day horse is my car. And every.
270.
Yeah, right. And every house that has a garage is an NCE.
Right. Is it gonna be incumbent upon the appellant to prove? Like, it has been in the past with, like, when we did the, Mary Pat Clark one, and she found the old microfiche.
Yeah.
Information about the one half of the building, and because here, when we went back, we kept going back to that 6 DUs on the zoning card. That was the primary structure, but the only reference to anything in the back was permission to put a sign on a plumbing office.
Yeah.
And a plumbing office isn't a carriage house.
Right.
It's a plumbing office.
That's access for the future, but Nate Cuddle and Al Berry are supposedly toying with that definition of the neighborhood commercial to say not only was it built as a non-commercial use, but for this property as an example, if there's a history of commercial uses, well then it becomes a conditional use with an order to commercial use. Conditional use back in. And this would be a good example because it was a plumbing office.
So their idea is not to go back, I mean, it's not applicable to us yet, but their idea was to not go back to construction, but go back to prior uses.
Prior uses.
Yes.
I mean, this property was essentially downsized from B2 to OR, so so I mean, it was one of those properties where the rug was pulled out from it.
You know, I want to approve this carriage house as the use that they want. I'm just trying to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah,
what
what's
it does
the line?
precedent-wise. Yeah,
What
right.
happens next?
Yeah.
That's not
Gotta
what's
be
in.
able to prove a carriage, there's gotta be a reason carriage house was defined in the code.
Well, I think this is
That's not
because,
random.
I think that that's just a definition that applies to certain kinds of structures that exist in various different locations in the city. I don't think it restricts or expands on location of the neighborhood commercial establishments and where they can be and whatnot. It's just that, there are structures generally located generally throughout the city that are known as carriage houses, and so this is what they are. All right, so this is approvable as a conditional use.
What does it mean that it would only be a permitted use if it was a big mixed use scenario?
So it's the manner in which it's approvable. So it could be a permitted use.
If it were a big mixed use project.
Yes. So if it were so if the structure has 50 or more dwelling units, and the non-residential uses are limited to just 10% of the structure's gross floor area. I think that kind of gets to what you're talking about, that they're talking that you can't have this complete conversion of what's a residential, at least not as a permitted use. You can't have a complete conversion of what really is a residential district, or a residential building, and have it now just completely converted over to neighborhood commercial. But yeah, I think that only applies to the permitted use, because on the chart, it's down as both conditional by the board and permitted. And they're just defining that it's permitted only in this certain context, otherwise it's gonna be conditional. They can't have their outdoor seating though.
Does it say that outdoor seating?
It says uses limited to building interior. All business, servicing, processing, and storage uses must be located within the building. Outdoor storage or display is prohibited.
And that actually is a point, I think, that was pretty deliberate by the planning commission, I'm guessing by the city council.
Oh.
They did not authorize outdoor dining as one of the neighborhood commercial establishment uses.
Yeah.
You should have put that under live entertaining, or dancing, or outside table service. Not yet, not neighborhood commercial.
Just using my feeble old brain. Then that helps
Makes
on
this
that
odd
one
is they're
point.
not asking for the sidewalk, they're asking for corporate records on the private property. That's the difference.
That may change their business plan too.
Yeah, because it's gonna limit their seating to just inside. Are they gonna be is it this entire structure? It looks kind of wide. Here we go. easy to figure out what the dimensions are of this thing. Oh no, here we go. 40, Jesus.
Roughly 46 by 24.
Yeah, I can't tell if it's 46 or 48.
It's 46.
You want me to whip out my readers?
I was gonna say, whoever's got some reading glasses. By, yeah, 23 3/4.
And that's how they avoided the parking requirement.
2,500, yeah.
I would love to be able to give them what they want. I just have concerns about the precedent. I mean, think about it. We could all go home next week and have a restaurant next door to our backyard, in the backyard.
Well,
of
that's
your
my
neighbor.
concern. I mean, you know, where as Jeff said, where is the line? Where do you draw the line?
And then how do we make that distinction from, case to, where do we draw the line without it being arbitrary? That we're unique to this property, sure, but if this opens the gate for anybody to be able to do it, I'm just concerned.
When I was with the federal government, I was called arbitrary and capricious a lot.
Yeah, there's really not, I'm like looking through this for any sort of indication of some guidance, and I'm not really finding it.
I don't think the drafters thought this
Maybe they
through.
contemplate this.
Yeah. I mean, they're looking at that corner row home with the diagonal door that has a big window, and it's easy, that was the corner bakery or the corner this or the corner that.
It's like the Second Amendment, they just didn't see very far in the future.
Well, and I think that they also sort of saw it in the context of large structures.
Yeah, 50,
so, your warehouse type use that's now in, a residential district.
Right.
And say that, okay, you can still use this warehouse as a commercial establishment. And I don't really think that they contemplated, because in that sort of situation, you can see that there would be the multiple location, the location of multiple different uses, that are identified here within that larger warehouse, and think that that's fine, and say, that's good to have all this kind of activity here. But I don't think that what they considered was exactly what you're talking about.
I would be willing to say to these folks, the board's looking at this, and the board has requested, if you want, to provide us some support as to how you meet the definition of a neighborhood commercial establishment. Give them another bite at the apple.
Well, I asked him that.
Yeah, I know.
And he...
He didn't
No.
I mean, they need to get Stanley or
understand
somebody.
exactly what standards he had to meet.
Yeah.
Well, I think that what they would just simply say is that it's, that what the code says, is that it's an existing building originally constructed and used for non-residential uses in a residential or OR district. And this one checks all the boxes off on that.
If it was a carriage house, if it in fact was a carriage house.
Well, even,
No.
again, I can't, the carriage house doesn't, that definition doesn't mean that much to me.
Yeah.
Well, because it doesn't matter, so it was not, because it was non-residential.
Yes, that's right.
So if it was a plumber's
Now,
office, it doesn't matter.
maybe that gives us the out. Maybe we can return back to that and say, hold on a second here, that maybe that answers our concern. which is to say that the use was residential within the context of it was to serve the residence that was there. It's an accessory structure for a residential building.
I thought you were right in the beginning.
Yes.
Not having two primary structures on one lot.
Well, there's that, but maybe this gives us the out, because, you know, as you said, the code doesn't give us any leeway, you know, one way or the other on that. Maybe the way to take it, and which would also deal with our concern over the garage, is that clearly these are accessory structures to residences, whether it's a carriage house, garage, whatever.
Right.
You got this big building that's on your property. I mean, I also remember back to, remember that guy who built that ridiculous garage for his boat?
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah,
I forgot where it was. It was bigger than the house.
Yeah.
You know, so that thing, the idea is that it's to serve the residents that's there. And so now we would be saying that all of these accessory structures are off the table as far as neighborhood commercial establishments.
You know, as much as I want to approve this, I think I'm leaning in that direction.
Yeah. I'll say kudos to you for seeing this, because originally I was like, yeah, there's no problem.
Oh, I have
But-
a big question.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no.
Going to make
I
your
mean,
life
it
a lot
sounds
easier
like
in the future
someplace
if that's
I would
the
want to
way you
go.
Yeah. And if, you know, quite honestly, the city council doesn't agree with us.
Then, yeah,
Can
let
fix
them,
it.
yes.
Right.
But I think the greater danger, you're right, is if we start approving every garage in the city for a neighborhood
Yeah.
commercial establishment.
That's the
That
concern I
will
have.
get the pitchforks out. Okay.
And it's
I think
interesting
we
how
figured
these
out.
two, I mean, because I really wanted to approve the character. I was concerned about
The other one.
the other one, which what really wasn't the garage.
Yeah.
I was fine with it, with the other one.
All right.
Yeah. Well, once we figured out that it wasn't in the garage. But yeah, once we, because I think that you and I sort of started off in the same place, that it was the whole first floor, and then, you know, you pointed out that it was the garage that was highlighted, then it was like, holy crap. Then I did see your point. It was like, these are really the same. One's a garage, the other one's a carriage house.
Yeah. It's that modern day horse that I'm parking.
Yes. All right, are we ready? Okay. And this also reminds me that we need to figure out some way to turn those off. Because, you know, people apparently do. Yeah, I remember that Michelle had, it was originally when they had those things, we had like a red sign and a green sign. And she originally would hold them up and then was supposed to shut it off. And then somehow we sort of, that dropped off. Because I think we found out that there wasn't a guy who was up there the whole time.
Just unplug your microphones.
You could do that too. But, all right, let's just go through this. 2017-48 was postponed. 2017-49 was postponed. 2018-20 was postponed. 2018-22, 719 South Durham Street. I'm a yes.
Yes.
2018-23, 1372 Washington Boulevard is a no-show. We'll reset. 2018-27, 1121 West Baltimore Street was consent, conditioned on, I guess, CHAP approval. 2018-28, 106 East Preston Street. 2018-28, 106 East Preston Street was consent with CHAP approval. 2018-38, 7007 Wallace Avenue. I'm a yes with planning department conditions.
Yes.
2018-39, 1831 Worcester Street was consent with planning department conditions. 2018-40, 4815 Fleet Street was postponed. 2018-41, 5523 Matfeld Avenue was consent with planning department conditions. 2018-42, 2223 Maryland Avenue, I'm a no.
No.
2018-43, 2509 North Charles Street was by consent. 2018-45, 304 South Clinton Street was by consent. 2018-52, 1501 East Baltimore Street was consent with planning department conditions. 2018-53, 2042 Bank Street was by consent. Not by consent, I'm a yes.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
2018-54, 574 through 580 Pressman Street is I'm a yes as amended to freestanding message board without the electronic messaging.
Yes.
Yes as amended.
2018-55, 200 North Utah Street was consent with planning department conditions.
Yes.
2018-56, 2018-56, 2818 East Monument Street. I'm a yes.
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 2018-57, 721 Dolphin Street was withdrawn. 2018-59, 3615 Keswick Road. I'm a yes.
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 2018-60, 200 South Conkling Street was postponed. 2018-62, 612 Cathedral Street was consent with planning department conditions. 2018-63, 418 South Madeira Street was by consent. 2018-64, 3417 Roland Avenue and 3419 Roland Avenue were by consent. 2018-66, 610 South Milton Avenue was by consent. 2018-67, 2834 Dillon Street was by consent. 2018-68, 711 South Port Street was by consent. And 2018-75, 1727 Patapsco Street was by consent.
Very good.
Martin, how did the floodplain change by 17 feet in somebody's backyard?
Don't ask me. I don't even know what the map is.
Can I help you?
I'm running the broadcast.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, and I heard your comment.
You brought the sign for us?
Let me turn, because we're still on, so
Yes.
let me turn, and then I'll come back and
Okay, great.
talk to you.
Thank you.
Guys, I gotta get back to the office.
All right.
Okay.
I was like, she's talking about building an addition. I'm thinking, I just want to sell that house if I'm 17 feet under flood.
Well, that,
You're not selling it.
the problem is it's floodplain. That doesn't mean it's normal conditions. It's the 100-year or 500-year floodplain.
Right.
How they draw the boundary,
But-
based on elevation.
It'd be applicable to whether you could get flood insurance or not, right?
Oh, yeah, it matters a lot.
Oh,
Yes.
they're definitely not gonna get that.
Yeah. My hometown, we had 2 100-year floods within a 5-year period.
I know, well, it's the law of averages, right? That's
Yeah.
why they call it a 100-year flood.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you only get one every 100 years. It just means over a long span of time, it averages out that way.
And that's assuming old physical conditions that they paid.
Also assuming people have kept records.
Repaving.
Right.
Bag of paper.